refrigerator Perry and just how hard he hit. And my mama told me homecoming games are the best on the banks of those late fall, late cartwheel sunsets. I wanted to be just like Jeff Davis when I grew up, tackling Seminoles and Bulldogs, playing football in the mud. So everybody sing Tiger Rag at the top of your lungs, and we'll party like it's 1981. Make those Death Valley lights shine brighter. And for good luck, we got Howard's Rock to beat the hell out of them old Gamecocks. It's a damn good day to be a Clemson Tiger. I feel really sorry for our sisters to the south, 'cause they come up here every other year and get punched in the mouth. Oh, and every home Saturday, it gives us the chills to watch those boys in orange run together down that hill. So everybody sing Tiger Rag at the top of your lungs, and we'll party like it's 1981. Make those Death Valley lights shine brighter. And for good luck, we got Howard's Rock to beat the hell out of them old Gamecocks. It's a damn good day to be a Clemson Tiger. Oh, somewhere up in heaven, Gaines Adams makes us sad. And that old Banks McFadden is the best damn running back. So everybody, sing Tiger Rag at the top of your lungs, and we'll party like it's 1981. Make those Death Valley lights shine brighter. And for good luck, we got Howard's Rock to beat the hell out of them old Gamecocks. It's a damn good day to be a Clemson Tiger. It's a damn good day to be a Clemson Tiger. Everybody, damn good day to be a Clemson Tiger. Oh yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. Pigskin Pete here. Something's up on my microphone already. Happy Thursday to everybody. Now, there's the beginning of the football week 4 for the college football season, and week 3 for the NFL season. We have a couple of games tonight. NFL game I want to talk about between the Browns and the Jets. Also want to talk about a lot of the games that are going on this weekend. But first and foremost, you can already see on the screen, I'm sure a lot of you have already heard about this. Uncle Lou did a video on it as soon as the news broke earlier today, as well as a couple of other guys did. Basically, everybody knows Catfish from the Volunteer Roadshow. If you don't know him as Catfish and you don't know who the Volunteer Roadshow is, I don't know what you've been doing with your life. But a great guy, great Tennessee video maker, truck driver. I got a text, a group text between us and a couple of the other video makers early this morning with Catfish letting us know that he was involved in a pretty bad accident. I want to say it was in Oklahoma, something like that. Anyway, that doesn't matter. He's in pretty bad shape. He's very lucky that he is okay and is gonna pull through. I have no doubt he'll be back on the air as soon as he can. I know he hates being off the air. He even did something from his hospital bed today, talking trash about the Florida Gators, which was pretty cool. But anyways, everybody keep him in your thoughts. Also, I'm going to spread the word. I'm not going to take credit for this. Uncle Lou organized this whole thing. In the description, there is a link to a GoFundMe for Catfish. Now, Catfish did not ask for any financial help from anybody. I know he wouldn't even do that. But anybody that knows anything about being self-employed, especially for truck drivers, if you're not on the road driving, you're not making any money. He could be laid up for weeks. Hopefully that's the best case scenario is he's back on the road in a few weeks. He's obviously got to get his truck fixed. It could be longer than that. We don't know. So Uncle Lou organized a GoFundMe page, and here's the way I look at it. Like I said, Catfish would never ask anybody for anybody's help, but I know if it were me in that situation or another video maker, he would do the same thing for us. I'm sure Uncle Lou would do the same for any of us as well. And the way I look at it is, If you can't donate anything, no shame in that. Everyone's got their own financial situations. But listen, he's got several thousand subscribers. I've got almost 800. Uncle Lou's got over 12,000. Bobby Durkins has over 1,000. Even if a fraction of those people who watch the videos on a regular basis donated $1, $2, $5, $10, whatever it is, a small amount, we could reach that $5,000 goal in absolutely no time. And I think that Catfish deserves it. And like I said, all of our thoughts and prayers go out to you, Catfish buddy, if you're watching. And I know you'll be back sooner than later. Go to the link in the description. GoFundMe. You don't even have to do anything except for click it. It's GoFundMe.com/Vol Roadshow. That's VOL Roadshow, all one word. So now that we got that out of the way, let's see who's in here. And say hello to everybody. Nick Bro, good afternoon, sir. 81 Clemson Tiger 16. Vol Rising, good afternoon, sir. I'm sure if you're here, you're amazing and fantastic. Otherwise, you would not be here. Lee Smith, Be Spooky, our resident Ohio State fan. He says A&M is going to upset Alabama. We'll get into that in a minute, sir. Billy Dawson, Jazzy TV, good afternoon, sir. I know he's excited about this weekend. The Goat Watson, my man. Lee Smith, I think I already said Lee Smith. I'm starting to repeat myself. SEC Dog, good afternoon, sir. I'm sure if you're here, you're amazing and fantastic. Otherwise, you would not be here either. And I happen to know that SEC Dog is amazing and fantastic. So I'm repeating myself as far as that goes as well. So here we go. Ryan Reedley, good afternoon, sir. And I'm sure Tiger Nation, my man, welcome to the show. Anybody else that joins later, sorry if I didn't shout you out. So the first thing I want to talk about, because there's a lot of college football to talk about. So we'll talk about that in a minute. I just want to go over one game in the NFL, the one that's happening tonight. Now, if anybody would have told me before, 3 weeks ago even, that I'd be so excited to watch the New York Jets play the Cleveland Browns, I would have laughed in your face. This is one of the best games of the week, in my opinion. I actually think that the Browns are going to win this game. Actually, in Vegas, they're favored. Now, would I bet it? Probably not. Well, of course, I don't bet money anyway. I just tell you to bet it so you lose your money and I don't lose mine. But that's besides the point. I think that really the Browns have they're what? 0-1-1. They got a tie against the Steelers and they lost last week barely to the Saints. I'm of the belief that if they had been starting Baker Mayfield from week 1, they'd be 2-0 right now. They barely lost that game to the Steelers. They should have beat them. And, of course, they barely lost that game on the road in New Orleans last week. They should have beat them as well. Tyrod Taylor is Jimmy Checkdown. He's basically the Alex Smith of the Cleveland Browns. He doesn't throw the ball down the field. His passing stats are absolutely horrid and terrible. The only good thing you say about him is he doesn't turn the ball over a lot. Well, that's great and fine. Not turning the ball over is a good thing. But if you can't, pass for over 150 yards in a game on average, you're not going to beat anybody in the NFL. It's just not going to happen. So will Baker Mayfield make his first appearance at some point tonight in the game? I sure hope so. I also have Jarvis Landry on my fantasy team, and he's on my bench right now. I don't know whether or not to put him in. I'll put him in as soon as Baker Mayfield becomes the starting quarterback. But until then, I'm scared to put him in the lineup. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to that game tonight. It should be a great Thursday night game, and I'm sure the guys from the Sports Fury, they do all of the primetime games Thursday, Sunday, and Monday nights, and so I'll definitely be tuning in with them during that game live. So anybody else who's going to be watching that game, do the same. The Goat Watson says the Browns need a new kicker. Didn't they release that kicker? I think they did. Maybe I'm thinking of another team. There's two teams last week that had major kicking problems. One of them got released. Nick Bro says the Browns will find a way not to win the game. Well, if they don't put Baker in there, they very well may lose the game. The Goat Watson says the Browns need a new kicker. Nothing wrong with the quarterback position. I disagree. Again, it doesn't matter whether it's NFL, high school, college. You put the best quarterback on the field. And no one's going to sit here and tell me that Tyrod Taylor is a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield, even if he isn't right now, which I think he is. What do the Browns have to lose? They have nowhere to go but up. When you haven't won a game, I saw the stat today, they haven't won a game in 635 days. I mean, that's an unbelievable stat. What do you have to lose by putting Baker in there? Nothing. All right, here we go. Darnell Ballard, good afternoon, sir. Taiwa, good afternoon. Ryan Rue 7, Browns and Vikings both cut their kickers. Yeah, that's what I thought. The Vikings, that's the other one. Thank you, sir. The Vikings have major kicking problems, don't they? They lost that playoff game a few years ago. That guy missed that short field goal. The Vikings just never can seem to find a good kicker. It's like a curse for them. Nick Rose says his Dolphins are 2-0. DeGoat Watson says, got to go with experience like Clemson is doing with Kelly Bryant. Well, see, this is where I disagree with you, DeGoat Watson. I think that the Browns should go with Baker Mayfield, and I think that the Tigers, Clemson, that is, should go with Kelly Bryant. So, I mean, not Kelly Bryant, Trevor Lawrence. Lee Smith says, put in Baker. B Spooky says, his Bengals are also 2-0 until next week, sir. When you come to, don't you guys play Carolina next week? I think you do. All right. Anyway, so that's all I wanted to talk about as far as the NFL goes. You see in the title here, Week 4 Football Talk Bama versus A&M. I put those two in the title because that's really the main one I'm looking forward to. Although there's several really good games this week that I want to talk about. We'll go ahead and start off with Alabama and Texas A&M. Some of you may have seen my my Vegas picks video that I did on Monday, where I picked against the spread for the Alabama and A&M game. I picked A&M against the spread with the points. It was at that time it was 26. I think it's 27 now. It may have even moved since then. I don't know. And my reasoning for that was, first of all, to be completely candid with you, I'm not 100% sold on either way to bet as far as the spread goes. Obviously, I think Alabama's going to win the game. I don't think there's very, very, very few people in the country, if not the world, that thinks that Texas A&M is going to actually win the game outright in Tuscaloosa against what looks to be a dominant Alabama team. Having said that, though, Alabama's blown out everybody they played this year so far. Let's face it, who's the best team they played? Louisville's not really that good. I mean, they're just not. I mean, Ole Miss really has one of the worst defenses in the SEC, if not the worst. I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe you could say that Arkansas is worse. But name me two other teams in the SEC that have worse defenses than Ole Miss. There aren't very many of them. So, yeah, they lit Ole Miss up. No surprise there. Texas A&M has the ability to score on Alabama. Now, are they going to outscore Alabama? No, that's not going to happen. I still see Alabama putting up 40 to 50 points in this game without a problem, as long as Tua stays healthy and all that. But here's the X factor. Here's the reason I think that A&M could keep it closer anyways than the 26 points and not get completely blown out. They have probably, if not the best, the second or third best offensive line in the SEC and maybe in the country. And there's not very many teams in college football you could say have an elite offensive line. Texas A&M is one of them. Their offensive line is loaded with NFL talent. Kellen Mond is a mobile quarterback. We saw that with Clemson, right? I mean, Clemson. Here's some stats about the Clemson game that people don't, tend to want to look at or care about. All they want to look at is the final score because that's all that really matters if you're a fan. Clemson sacked Kellen Mond 4 times. They knocked him down 14 times. They were, even the times that they didn't knock him down, they were in his face. They were penetrating through that line in his face the entire game. What did Kellen Mond do when he wasn't getting sacked or knocked down? He rolled out of the pocket and was able to extend the plays 6, 7, 8 seconds long. And I don't care how good your defensive backs are. It's hard to cover an elite wide receiver or any wide receiver for that matter for 7 or 8 seconds, which is why they got open and they were making big plays against Clemson because he just kept extending the plays. He's not a statue. Kellen Mond's going to be able to make some plays and probably get a few touchdowns that say the Ole Miss quarterback couldn't get in Louisville's quarterback and so on and so on. So at the end of the day, what I'm getting at in a very long-winded way here is that I think that Texas A&M will keep it interesting and not get blown out by 40 points. In my estimation. But I've been wrong before. And trust me, I wouldn't be shocked if that happened. Here's the other thing. We'll learn a lot about both teams this week, won't we? We'll learn a lot more about Alabama than we will about Texas A&M, because Texas A&M's already played one elite team and played a great game against them. Now, that was at Texas A&M. It wasn't, in Tuscaloosa. That's a big difference as well. They won't have the home crowd advantage. But we'll learn how Alabama plays against mainly Alabama's defense. How do they play against somebody that has an elite offensive line and a mobile quarterback who can make plays with his arms on the run? That's what we'll learn. And that'll give us, now, if Alabama goes out there and just completely curb stomps and embarrasses Texas A&M, I will be on the bandwagon that Alabama probably won't not only lose a game this year, but they might not even have any close games if they completely blow A&M out. Texas A&M is going to keep the game close, Pete. Let's see what you guys are saying about this. I was going on my rant there. Bama played no one. Clemson could get their passing game down and destroy Alabama's secondary, says Tiger Nation. Ole Miss gave up 41 to Southern Illinois. LSU and Auburn's offenses look kind of confused. See, that's not anything really new for either one of those teams, to be honest with you. I mean, everybody knows LSU's had offensive problems for a decade now. It's really was going on well before Les Miles even got fired, and obviously that's the reason he did get fired. I'd say their offense looks a little bit better this year than it has in a while, LSU that is, and they've actually got a quarterback that can throw the ball. That helps too. Auburn, I feel, if you're an Auburn fan, I feel sort of the same way about Clemson as I do about Auburn. Their offensive play calling is atrocious. You just don't get it. The managing of the clock by Gus Malzahn, that might be his worst coaching attribute. The guy can't save a timeout. He uses every timeout in the first quarter, it seems like, every single game. Just from, I don't know what it's miscommunication or what, but his clock management's horrible. On the other hand, Auburn went out and got an offensive coordinator, and who runs a completely different style of offense than Gus Malzahn does, or at least he did at the previous school he was at. But it still seems to me like it's Gus Malzahn's offense. He brought this new offensive coordinator in, but the offense hasn't really changed its philosophy at all, from what I can tell. They only went up 21 more than St. Lucas did on Ole Miss. LSU versus Alabama game will come down to the last drive, says Ryan Rue. When's that game, LSU and Alabama? A couple more weeks from now. Billy Dawson says, I'm also glad Patrick Surtain got some time against Ole Miss. Lee Smith says Clemson's offense isn't really clicking yet. I completely agree with that. I do think that they will. Now, I was hoping that we might see a change at quarterback, even if they named Kelly Bryant the starter. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. From what I saw today with Dabo Swinney's Wednesday press conference, whatever, Q&A session he had after practice. And he basically said, we're still evaluating both quarterbacks, and it's still back and forth every day at practice, and we still don't know till game time who's going to start. But it doesn't really matter who starts. They're still going to both get significant playing time, which basically means the same thing it's meant since week one. He's playing two quarterbacks, which I'm not happy about, but it is what it is. There's a reason he's being paid $8 million a year, and I'm sitting here talking to you guys on YouTube because he's obviously a genius, and I'm not. DeGoat Watson, Pigskin Pete, tell you what. I'm tired of Clemson fans on Twitter saying we get blown out by 40 to 60 points by Alabama. Stop overreacting. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. Listen, first of all, we've played Alabama 3 years in a row in the playoffs, right? 2 national title games, which both games came down to the last play of the game. Alabama won one, Clemson won one. Last year, the score was definitely lopsided. However, there's 2 or 3 plays, really 2 key plays in that game that really were touchdowns for Clemson that were just completely one of them was a drop ball by Deion Kane down in plus territory, like around the 30-yard line. That would have been an easy touchdown. Right in his hands, just dropped it. There was nobody around him to tackle him. That would have been another touchdown. And And there's another play, I can't even remember which one it was. My point is, Clemson's defense against Alabama's offense last year. Now, I realize that was Jalen Hurts and not Tua Tagovailoa or Tagovailoa or whatever his name is. It's a different story now. But I'm here to tell you, Clemson's defense this year is better than they were last year. Clemson's defense played great against Alabama last year in that game. The offense was atrocious. The offensive line was terrible. Kelly Bryant didn't have a really good game. The receivers were dropping balls left and right. So the score was a bad score to end with. But as far as the totality of the game, Clemson did not get completely waxed on both sides of the ball during that game. For anybody that thinks that if Alabama and Clemson meet at any point during this year, that Clemson's going to get blown out by 40 points, it's not going to happen. I want somebody to tell me. I can tell you exactly when. When's the last time Clemson got lost by more than 40 points to any team in the country? I'll tell you when it was. It was 2010 Orange Bowl against West Virginia when we lost like 70 to whatever it was, 70 to 20 something, 70 to 30. But in the past 8 years, nobody's beat Clemson by more than 40 points. As a matter of fact, very, very few people at all have beat Clemson, and if they have lost, it's been close. So nothing's going to change about that this year. Good afternoon, Miranda Dansby. How you doing? Lee Smith says, if Fromm can't start throwing more than 5-yard passes, he's ready for Fields to get a look. Yeah, so I already gave my opinion on that. I think that they need to start throwing the ball as well. They're in sort of the same boat as everybody else in the country is. If you're Georgia and you're clearly probably most likely going to win the SEC East, and there's a 90% chance that in the SEC championship you're going to be playing Alabama. If you want to win that game, you're going to have to throw the ball. You're not lining the ball up in I formation and running up through the middle on Alabama and winning a game that way. And I had a lot of Georgia fans in my comment section after I said that saying, well, we don't need to throw the ball. And, we can win by 40 points even if we don't throw the ball. And if we do need to throw the ball, we can do that. Well, if you can do that, then why aren't you doing it? And I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying you're not doing it. What's up, Ace Outlaw? How you doing, sir? To be fair, Pete Hurts couldn't do anything against Georgia last year. Then Tua came in. Yeah, well, we all know how that ended, don't we? Ace Outlaw says the ACC is better than the SEC and has been the last couple of years. That's a fact. I really don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So the numbers suggest, first of all, I've never ever come out and said that the ACC is better than the SEC. And what I have done over and over and over again until I'm blue in the face is make a case that the ACC is right there with the SEC, at least over the past 5 years. That's the numbers say, back up what I'm saying. That's just all there is to it. There's been 47 games played between the two conferences head to head. And the ACC has a winning record over the past 5-year span. Very close winning record. It's like a 2-point winning record, but it's a winning record, like 25 and 23. The ACC is against the SEC. The SEC is heavier at the top, but the ACC as a whole. So let's put it this way: right now, well, up until last year, it was Clemson, Florida State. Right, we're pretty much the dominant ACC teams. Florida State's fallen off the map, so you just go ahead and throw them out of the conversation for now. Right now, it's Clemson's the only dominant team in the ACC. But there's 14 teams in these conferences, people. There's not only one or two. So the middle part of the ACC and the lower part of the ACC can compete with the middle part of the SEC and the lower part of the SEC. That's the reason you see the records over the past 5 years the way they are, and that's exactly why. And then you can make the same case for the Big Ten, the Pac-12. Every conference is like this. They have a couple of really good teams, and then the rest of them are a wash. Now, I would say that this year the SEC is definitely better top to bottom than the ACC is. I mean, through 3 games, there's really no debating that. So, but take the lower tier SEC teams and put it against the lower tier ACC teams this year, and I think it'd be a good game no matter who played who. And people like to argue with me when I point that stuff out, and they say I'm crazy, and then they go around saying that I said something I didn't say, They go around saying, "Oh, this idiot thinks the ACC is better than the SEC," and they start telling me how many national championships have been won in the past 20 years. But I never said that. Some people have selective hearing. We all know who isn't the best conference. It's the Big Ten. Well, I agree with that. And again, I was proven wrong on that, as was the rest of America. Everybody and their mother had 2 Big Ten teams getting in the playoff this year, and the Big Ten was going to dominate everybody else, and we've seen that that's clearly not the case. SEC Dog, I just did about a 5-minute conversation on this. I just answered every single question you just asked me on there. He says, who's in the ACC besides Clemson? Serious question. Miami question mark. I just went over this. I just spent 5 minutes going over this. You're asking me the same question I just answered, sir. Dennis Wilson, good afternoon, sir. He says, Rock Rubbers, Ramp Runner, Clem Dumb Tigers. Tiger Nation says he has selective hearing with his wife. So listen, I'm not going to get into the SEC ACC thing. I've just said live on the air, and I'm not going to say it anymore. Well, I might say it again. This year, 2018, after 3 games, the SEC looks far and away like the best conference this year. There you have it. I hope that appeases all of you SEC fans out there. Anyway, so another game I want to talk about is the game I'm going to be broadcasting, and that's the Stanford and Oregon game. That's where game day is this week. It's in Oregon. It's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday night. So you have an undefeated Stanford team and an undefeated Oregon team. Bryce Love, if you look at his stats, haven't been great so far this year. He had a terrible first game. And then the second game he played, they had a really good game, or he had a really good game in that game, and they won that game. And then, of course, last week he was out with an injury. He will be playing again this week. How healthy he is, I don't know. They didn't even list what his injury was. It says undisclosed, which I didn't even know you could do that. But anyway, they're not saying what the injury was. It must not be that serious if he's playing this week. Meanwhile, you have Oregon, who has pretty much been written off by everybody, including myself. I mean, they were a dumpster fire with Helfrich. Then Willie Taggart takes over the team. They go from 3 wins to 7 wins. Willie Taggart leaves, hauls ass down to Florida State to ruin that program. In the meantime, they promote from within. I want to say it was the offensive coordinator, and Mario Cristobal. He takes over the team, and so far they look really good. Now, they have an elite quarterback in Justin Herbert, who's lighting up the stat sheet every single week so far. Oregon's defense is actually pretty good. I mean, in comparison to the rest of the Pac-12, no doubt about that. And they have a lot of speed and a lot of skill all over that field, especially on offense. So, again, this is a hard game to pick. I picked in my spread video, my Vegas video, that I picked Oregon to cover the spread. Oregon is currently, I think, a 2 or 3 point underdog. They started out as a favorite by 1 point, and so much money went on Oregon that that the line moved all the way down to -2 for Stanford, so Stanford's favored. I still bet Oregon. I'm not a believer in Stanford. I mean, they just don't look like. I don't think their defense is as good as people think it is. I think that really the quarterback's not very great. They have two elite players on that team. You have Bryce Love and that Artigo-Whiteside wide receiver. He's an NFL wide receiver, and of course Bryce Love is going to be an NFL running back. I mean, how good he'll be in the NFL, I don't know, but you understand what I'm saying. Outside of that, I couldn't name one single player on that entire Stanford roster. I'm sure a Stanford fan, if you're on here, can go ahead and name a dozen of them. But to make a long story short, I think that it's going to be a great game for one, and I think Oregon's going to win. And if Oregon actually wins this game and wins it convincingly, not just barely beats them, but if Oregon, say, wins this game by 2 or 3 touchdowns, let's say, hypothetically, I would say Oregon would have a real shot to compete. I'm not saying beat, but compete with Washington. And wouldn't that be interesting? Because, I mean, listen, the preseason favorite for everybody in America and their mother, including myself, was that Washington was going to run away with the Pac-12. There wasn't anybody in that entire conference that could even come close to competing with them. They came out week 1 against Auburn, played them really tough, had Auburn on the ropes, could have easily won that game, but anyway, they lost it. But they showed they're a tough team that can compete with SEC teams and whatever. But I mean, listen, if Oregon, like I said, can go out there and prove themselves this week, how interesting will that Washington-Oregon game be when they play? Very interesting. Eric Birch, good afternoon, sir. How you doing? Welcome to the stream. I'm sure if you're here, you're amazing and fantastic. Otherwise, you would not be here. Jamie McCaslin, how you doing, sir? Tiger Nation says they said they found Miami turnover chain and all them ugly new uniforms washed up on the shore this weekend. 81 Clemson Tiger fan is enjoying a Sam Adams Oktoberfest, and clearly he's in the right frame of mind. He's telling everybody to quit arguing and settle down. He's trying to enjoy his beer. So cheers to that, sir. Andrew, good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the stream. Boston College most underrated team in the nation, says Ricky Williams. I know that guy. Stanford most overrated. I would agree that Stanford's probably the most overrated. We'll find out this weekend. I'm not sure you can call Boston College underrated anymore. They seem to have the attention of most of the country, and as they should. So I don't know if you can call them underrated anymore, based on the performances they've had. So we were looking up this stat earlier today, and it has nothing to do with anything, but it's funny, and so I'm going to say it. So we're talking about Ohio State, talking about how Ohio State's really the only really good team. Well, not good team, but great team in the Big Ten. They're shoo-in to win the Big Ten at this point, unless somehow Penn State can find a way to steal that title from them. And let's look at Ohio State's resume. Who'd they play? What did they play? Like UNLV week 1. Then they played Rutgers week 2. So the final score, I have to look it up. I'll give you a close enough estimate here. The final score of Ohio State versus Rutgers was like 55 to 10 or 12 or something like that. 7, whatever it was. They blew them off the map. 55 points against Rutgers, and Rutgers only scored like a touchdown. Then, last week, Kansas goes into Rutgers and scores 50-something points on them, just like Ohio State did. And by the way, they only gave up like one more touchdown than Ohio State did. Now, Ohio State's supposed to have a high-powered offense and one of the best defenses in the country. Meanwhile, Kansas put up basically the exact same score against Rutgers as they did a week apart. Go figure that one out for me. So is Ohio State a contender or a pretender? I still think Ohio State's a contender, but it's still funny that Kansas did just as well as they did against Rutgers. Dennis Wilson says, yeah, Tiger Nation, glad that hurricane blew through because this other hurricane about to blow through Charlotte. Dennis Wilson, man. You're a trip. You got to make it to Charlotte first, sir. There's a couple of other teams. Let's see here. Virginia Tech might have something to say about that. Guess who else might have something to say about that? Duke. Don't lose to Duke, man. Just don't do it. Everybody just 81 Clemson Tiger 16 says, everybody just ignore me. I'm 5 beers into an Oktoberfest 12-pack. DeGoat Watson says, you never watched your team win a national championship and never will. I don't know who he's talking to. He must be talking to a Georgia fan. To be fair, I never saw Clemson win a national championship until a year ago. But I was alive when they won their first one. I was just too young to know what a football was. That's another interesting game this week. Just a bunch of interesting. I could get on here for 2 hours really and talk about some of these games that are coming up this week. But my TV will be working overtime for sure. The Georgia game is interesting to me. not interesting because I think that Georgia's going to lose the game. It's just interesting to me that, well, first of all, I'll say this. I think that Missouri will be the best team that Georgia's played all year so far. And you say, well, hell, they played South Carolina in Columbia. Yeah, well, guess what? I think Missouri's probably better than South Carolina. And I'm not even trolling. I'm being serious. One thing I know for sure, Missouri's got a better offense than South Carolina does. Now I'm not saying I don't know about the defense. But so I'll basically what I'm saying here is I'll be very interested to see how Georgia's defense, because let's be real here. If you're looking for a weakness on that Georgia team in comparison to last year, it is definitely Georgia's defense, right? I mean, they lost a lot of elite talent on defense. They have a lot of returning starters, and they have a lot more weapons on offense, minus Nick Chubb and Shoney Michel. But everybody else surrounding Nick Fromm and whoever or Justin Fields or whoever ends up being the starter there, Georgia's offense, I think, still can compete with anybody in America. The defense, though, can they stop a high-powered offense like Drew Lock and company? We'll see. I still think that Missouri's going to score with them. So the question is, can Missouri's defense hold it together enough to not let that game get blown open wide? Now, obviously, Georgia's got way more depth. You could see a similar situation to what happened at South Carolina, where Georgia just sort of goes in the second half and just blows the doors off them because they're just deeper. But I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. I wouldn't be surprised if this game was like something like 40-35 or 40-30, and Missouri kept it close. As a Georgia fan, I'm loving these recent recruiting classes. Hopefully we have enough depth to win a natty. Yeah. Comic Dude 45, good afternoon, sir. Yeah, so for anybody that I see a lot of people mentioning Catfish, I opened up with it. I won't go through the whole thing again. Everybody, most of you, if you don't know that he was in a bad accident. To make a long story short, the best way to help him right now, and like I said, he did not ask for anybody's help. Uncle Lou put this GoFundMe page together for him to try to raise $5,000. That's the target, because he's losing a lot of money by not being able to drive. He's self-employed truck driver. So go to the link in the description. Donate $2, $3, $5, $10, $100 if you want to. But whatever you can spare will help. And I think that it would be a good thing to do for him. Listen, I know people don't understand. I know for a fact that Catfish spends a lot of his own money out of his own pocket and, of course, a lot of his own time doing the Volunteer Road Show on the road. He gives away a lot of stuff, those tiki totem things that you see him give away to people. He gives away a lot of those. He's always doing some sort of giveaway, and that's all coming out of his pocket. So time to return the favor to our buddy Catfish there, because he won't tell you he needs his help, but I'm telling you that we should help him. The hurricane will be a tropical storm by the time it gets to Charlotte. You guys are still talking about Miami. Eric Burt says, Pete, thanks for keeping me company at work. Well, no, thank you, sir. Thank you for keeping me company while you're at work. I appreciate that. Anytime I can distract somebody from work and get them to not do their job and watch me instead, that's a good day for Pigskin Pete. Your boss probably hates me, though. Besides Notre Dame, Clemson has the most out-of-state recruits coming next year. We do great out-of-state recruiting. We have to. But we're surrounded by all the states that have, on the East Coast that have the elite talent. So we get pretty much, the vast majority of the elite talent out of our own state, and then we go cherry pick out of North Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, Louisiana. We're not like, in the top 10 as far as state talent, 4- and 5-star talent in our state high school football, but we're surrounded by everybody. We're in a very good geographic location for recruiting at Clemson, that's for sure. And we have great recruiters. Number one would be Dabo Swinney. Oh, hold on, let me go back up and answer this one here. DeGoat Watson says, Pigskin Pete, what happened in the Panthers versus Falcons game? So I'll tell you what happened. The Panthers defense, which is supposed to be a top 10 defense every single year in the NFL, looked like it couldn't stop a runny nose. That's what happened. Cam Newton actually played great. The offense played great, really. The Panthers offense looked better than normal, and their defense looked absolutely atrocious. And the Panthers did not deserve to win that game the way that their defense played. They couldn't stop anything. George, good afternoon, sir. He says, until somebody proves different, it looks like Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State, maybe even Georgia, are on a pedestal, and until somebody knocks them off. Well, yeah, those you could throw Oklahoma in there. Darnell Ballard says, beating an average team by 2 points isn't a accomplishment. Just keep that thought when we go 11-1. See, y'all have asked team in the playoffs. Go Dogs. I don't know who you're talking about. Average team by 2 points. Are you talking about Clemson and A&M? That's not. You're right. Beating an average team on the road is not an accomplishment. You're assuming that Texas A&M is an average team, number one. And number two, I'll tell you what is an accomplishment. An accomplishment is being the second winningest program over the past 8 years consecutively behind Alabama. The other accomplishment is making 3 straight college football playoffs, 2 of those being national title games, and 1 of those being a national title win. That's an accomplishment. I'll tell you what's not an accomplishment. Going to South Carolina and beating a terrible South Carolina team is not an accomplishment, sir. So good luck with Missouri. According to DeGoat Watson, my dogs may as well just pack it up. No sense in playing, no more games. DeGoat Watson's just trolling you, dude. What would it be? What would football be without trash talking? I swear sometimes this comment section is more entertaining than me, than me doing this show. I can just read this all day. George says, yes, Georgia should forfeit the rest of the season. Now we got a Florida fan in there. That's another game I'm looking forward to. I don't know why, but I am. It's like watching 2 trains crash into each other. Train wreck. Florida and Tennessee. Is that game on Friday night? Am I right about that? Is that a game tomorrow night or is it on Saturday? But yeah, so who's going to win that game? Somebody tell me. Somebody who's not a fan of one of those teams, tell me who's going to win it. That's what I really want. I mean, my man Catfish is laid up in a hospital bed right now, somewhere halfway across the country. Let's put it this way: for Catfish, because I really don't care, but for Catfish's sake, I want Tennessee to win this game. That's all. It's for Catfish. Let's give this guy a piece of joy while he's laying, banged up in a hospital bed, right? There's only 2 things that can make Catfish feel better right now. 1, a win by Tennessee. 2, some really good-looking nurses giving him some sponge baths for the next few weeks while he's in there. I hope both those things happen for him. Well, Pete, to acknowledge Georgia fan didn't really brag about the Carolina win. No, you're right. I didn't really see a lot of Georgia fans bragging about it. But when Georgia fans come on here and tell me that beating Texas A&M by 2 points isn't an accomplishment, great. Maybe you're right. It's not an accomplishment. So what's Georgia accomplished this year that Clemson hasn't? That's my point. That's all. DeGoat Watson says, isn't Catfish married? I thought he was divorced. Maybe he's remarried. I don't know. I think he's divorced. Anyway, even if he is remarried, it's not cheating when a nurse is giving you a sponge bath. That's completely off the table as not cheating. That's legit. That's allowed. Darnell Ballard says, Pete, why is Georgia Tech such a disgrace? Well, that's simple. Because they have one of the biggest jokes of an embarrassment of a college football coach in the entire country, if not the biggest joke of an embarrassment of a college football coach in the entire country. People always ask me, why do you... I'm passionate about firing Paul Johnson. I know Uncle Lou always tells me he wants to keep Paul Johnson there as long as possible because they like to beat up on Georgia Tech. And so does Clemson. I mean, I like to beat up on Georgia Tech too. People always say, Pete, why do you care so much? I mean, I don't like Georgia Tech, so why do I care so much about their coach? I'll tell you why. Because I'm an ACC homer, and listen, I still want to beat up on Georgia Tech, but let's be real. Running that triple option in 2018 for any Power 5 football program is a complete embarrassment to both the school and the conference. That's the bottom line. And that's why. That's why they're so terrible, because they have a crappy coach. And did you see what Paul Johnson said at the press conference for the Clemson game? He basically, now, listen, every single press conference you watch from a football coach, right? So this week, let's pick a game that should be an easy win for somebody, right? Let's say Georgia and Missouri. All right, everyone thinks Georgia should easily win the game. They got way more talent. They probably will win the game, and they should win the game. I guarantee you Missouri's coach during the press conference this week did not go out there and say, well, there's no way we're going to beat Georgia unless we just, something crazy happens. Well, that's what Paul Johnson did. Paul Johnson basically said, Clemson's too good. We're going to have to play our absolute perfect game to even have a chance to compete with them. Now, if you play for Paul Johnson, or you're being recruited by Paul Johnson to go to Georgia Tech, if you're in high school and you watch that press conference, this guy gave up the game before he even played the game. Even if he believes that, you don't say that. And what's wrong with that guy? But he's right. He has no chance. Go Tennessee, says Tiger Nation. Ace Outlaw says, we got robbed in 02 and 03. You must be talking about the national title game with Ohio State, if I can remember correctly. Right, Ace? You're a Miami fan? Wrong on purpose. Good afternoon, sir. I'm sure if you're here, you're amazing and fantastic. Otherwise, you would not be here. Wrong on purpose. The artist formerly known as Drake Luke. Hey, wrong on purpose. I'll be broadcasting your game of the year so far, sir. So I hope you stop in with me on Saturday night at 8 p.m. And I picked your Oregon Ducks to beat Stanford. So hey, call the coach or whatever your connections are there at the school and tell them, do not let down Pigskin Pete. I hold a grudge. If I go out on a limb and George says he picked Stanford to win the game. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I do have Bryce Love on my fantasy team, so I hope he scores a lot of points. I mean, I don't care who wins the game, but I think Oregon's got a shot. I do like Justin Herbert, the quarterback there. He's exciting to watch. Nick Saban, disciple, looking better than Willie Taggart right now, ain't he? Hey, the artist formerly known as Drake Luke was Willie Taggart leaving and taking that job at Florida State the best thing that ever happened to Oregon, or what? Best thing that ever happened to Oregon, worst thing that ever happened to Florida State. Holy crap. I think Florida State's going to actually win a couple games this year. It doesn't look like they will, but I think they will. Billy Dawson says, is Bryce Love playing or is he still hurt? He's playing. DeGoat Watson says, imagine Dabo Swinney coaching Deshaun Watson in the NFL. He would love that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know how good of a coach Dabo would be in the NFL. He might be a terrible one. Look, Nick Saban wasn't very good in the NFL. It's a different sport altogether, really. Pete, which is the most delusional, Gamecock fans or Ohio State fans? Ooh, man, that's a great question, Darnell. I would have to say the Gamecocks are, and that's not just because I live in South Carolina and I've been dealing with those numbskulls my entire life. They are definitely delusional. There's no doubt about that. Ohio State fans are, but here's the difference. Ohio State fans have success. I mean, they're a blue blood football program. They've won 5 national titles. They've been relevant pretty much every single year of my life. They won a national title just a few years ago. They're in the top 5 now. So you get my point. When South Carolina has never achieved any of that, but yet they still think they're going to win every year. So South Carolina are more delusional for sure. Yes, thank you, Tiger Nation. That reminds me. I always forget to tell people, which is why I have fined people like Tiger Nation and Billy Dawson and the rest of my moderators to remind people, because I'm very bad at doing that. If you're new here, please hit the like and subscribe button. It doesn't cost you a single dollar or a penny to do that. All you have to do is click it. Upload college football videos all week long, and I do 2 live shows a week, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday at 4 p.m., both for an hour long. And then, of course, I pick one primetime game every single weekend and do a live play-by-play and reaction live during the game for the entire game, which usually lasts about 3.5 to 4 hours of streaming. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun in here. We hate on each other, but we all have one thing in common. We're all college football and NFL fans, and that's all that really matters. Sooner Race, good afternoon, sir. He says he just heard about Catfish. He's glad he's okay. Yeah, everyone's glad he's okay. It could have been a lot worse. And I'm sure everybody's. I spoke with him earlier. He's pretty overwhelmed with all the support he's getting, and that's a good thing. But yes, everyone, I'm glad he's okay too. I mean, it could be a different story right now. Yeah, it could have ended a lot worse than it did, and thank God it didn't. Ace Outlaw says he's been watching ever since Alonzo put me on to you. Yeah, man, Alonzo, I haven't talked to Alonzo in a couple weeks. Alonzo's my boy. He's one of the first guys that reached out to me. We started off on the wrong foot too, but while I'm talking about Alonzo, I need to get in touch with Alonzo, actually. Thanks for reminding me about that. Alonzo sent a lot of people to my YouTube channel, and he knows how I feel about that. Anytime anybody does that, another video maker, it makes me feel good. But this is a story I meant to tell at the beginning of the stream, talking about Catfish, since he's the man of the hour right now. So I started making these videos in October of last year, so it's been almost a year. It's September right now, right? Let me do the math here. Yeah, 11 months. So, I don't know. I was probably a few weeks into doing it. I had maybe 30, 40 subscribers. I mean, I was lucky to get probably 30 or 40 views on any given video. I was just starting out. Nobody knew who I was. I don't know how Catfish found me, but he did. He was the very first video maker to reach out to me when I had nobody paying attention to me at all. I mean, when I say nobody, I mean nobody, other than, a few people. And he asked me to come on his show to talk about, he saw one of my trash talking videos when I was talking trash about the SEC as an ACC guy. And of course, him being an SEC guy, and he's got an SEC-based show, he contacted me and said, hey, I'd love for you to come on the show and talk about the ACC versus the SEC, which I did. And then after that, I came on a few more times. I did a fan face-off with Law Tide. I was on there after the Clemson and Alabama game to talk about that game and the playoff. I've been on there several times. And but he was the first one. And then after him, I've been lucky enough to be contacted by several, half a dozen or more other video makers who invited me on their show, including some of the big names like Uncle Lou, the Sports Fury, Spencer from Rover Sports. I know I'm probably missing somebody, Bobby Durkins. So anyway, Catfish was the first one to reach out. He started a little bit before I did. And, I've never met the guy personally or any of these other guys, but I consider Catfish and some of these other guys to be friends, despite the fact that we've never met, because I talk to them on a regular basis is the same way I would do any other friend. So anyway, that's a great point to leave this. Thank you to all my moderators. Thank you to all the people that stopped in and commented. Thank you for everybody. Go to the description, click the GoFundMe page, go on there. Listen, donate $2, $3, $4, $5, whatever. I'm sure you're not going to miss $4 or $5. And if 1,000 people do that, we'll hit this $5,000 donation in no time. Get well, Catfish. I will be getting with Bobby Durkins here pretty soon. He got in contact with me today. He wants to do a collaboration here soon. I don't know, very soon, maybe even tonight or something. I don't know. That's it, I guess. So listen, I will see you guys if I don't see you between now and then. Today's Thursday, so in a couple days, I'll see you Saturday for sure. Saturday at 8 p.m. Be there or be square. Tell everybody about it. Shout it out from a mountaintop. Tattoo it on your forehead if you have to. If you tattoo it on your forehead, make sure you tattoo it backwards so that when you look in the mirror, it reads correctly. Share it on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you got to do. Do it. Thank you to everybody. Have a great day. And no. As a matter of fact, I take that back. Hold on. Normally, the way I check out for anybody who knows me, as I normally say, Pigskin Pete, check it out. Today, in honor of Catfish, my sign-off will be, go Vols! We're going 14-1. I promise you that.